Welcome to the Growth Hacking Culture Podcast, everyone. Today's episode tackles a challenge that has become increasingly relevant in our evolving work landscape, building belonging in a virtual world. Did you know that over 70% of remote workers sometimes feel isolated or lonely? While the flexibility and convenience of remote work are really undeniable, the lack of physical connection can take a toll. This episode is your roadmap to fostering a sense of belonging in your virtual team. We will be diving, in fact, deep into the science behind connection, exploring practical strategies for building camaraderie, and kind of uncovering the unexpected benefits of strong virtual relationships. Joining us today is Kevin Finke. He's the founder of a company called Experience Willow. He is one of the most recognized experience consultants advising business leaders on the importance and value of designing workplaces for inclusion and belonging. This is quite interesting, Kevin. Thank you very much for being with me today.
I would love to be with you, hopefully even more days in the future. So I'm so happy to be here and excited to be talking about our favorite subject.
You are going to love here the nature, the cows, the horses going around. You're going to enjoy it. Definitely.
I love it.
Kevin, first I want to understand a little bit of how you transitioned, because I understood that you were working like big marketeers somewhere in the United States, and suddenly you move into this area of creating human-centric work cultures.
Yes.
How did it happen? How did you move from all these prizes in marketing to wanted to have prizes about inclusion, diversity, belonging? Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, when I tell people that I still do marketing, but in just to a different consumer, I think I intrigue them. So in 2000, I started my human-centered design firm. So we are experienced designers. And my first 20 years of my career was carved out in the agency world in the United States. We were calling on multinational global companies and all of the firms in which I worked. I was helping brands like Coca-Cola and Verizon, Unilever, Kraft Foods. We were helping brands like these that are global brands connect to consumers here in the US. And in 2010, I actually left that work. I was feeling called to be on my own, to start my own thing. And so I took 2 years off. That's when I know I was sharing with you earlier that I come from a rural background, a farming background, from a farming community background. And I literally went home to my home in Midtown Atlanta, Georgia, and I put my hands in the soil. And I got 8 raised beds where I raised the most beautiful vegetables, but I became a farmer again. I also got on my bicycle, which I hadn't really been on since my childhood. And I found that as I rode the bicycle, it just opened up my imagination and my creativity. And one of the first things that really started to flow into me and through me was a business that I felt that I was intended to start. And so not knowing much about quote unquote design thinking or human-centered design, I set off to learn. But in the beginning, we were using the skills and the actions of design to just do what I did before. We started in 2012 as an experience company focused on consumer experiences. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of fun. One of our most, in fact, I love to brag a little bit and be, about our work because it was such fun work. One of our first clients was HBO. And they were actually launching a new network here in the United States. The first Spanish, they actually were watching a new network in the Cinemax network in Latin America. And so it was going to be done with the property of Game of Thrones. And so they came to us and said, hey, we have 350 media buyers that buy, ads we'll buy ads on Cinemax in Latin America. And we want to entertain them and give them a wonderful experience, a Game of Thrones experience. And so we actually it was a week-long immersive experience where we hired actors and performers. We built out a fiery village, and we had a wonderful castle that was all part of it. Like, it was amazing what we were able to do, but we were doing these immersive consumer experiences for the first 2 years. And that particular experience won Global Experience of the Year by the Eventex Awards. So we knew we had something. I knew, my team knew we were doing good work. But in 2014, I had been asked if our company could help a marketing team inside a company called NCR. It's a global technology company started in the United States. It was National Cash Register. The first cash registers came out of this company in Dayton, Ohio. And they had grown up, they were growing up. They weren't just now cash registers, they were doing self-checkouts. They were managing apps for like brands like Starbucks. Anywhere transactions were taking place is where their technologies, their software, and their hardwares were. And their marketing team had purchased some sponsorships of the National Football League. And they needed someone who had done this kind of work, which I had in my past. And they said, could you help us? So while I was doing this marketing work inside this company, NCR, helping them build their consumer culture, right? Consumer culture. I'm marketing to consumers and customers. I meet their chief HR officer. And as I start talking to her about brands and brand culture and how employees have to live the brand, and they're the most important part of the brand, I believe, not just the products and services. It isn't just the Apple products that we engage with that are exciting, but if you've ever met Apple employees, like they're the people that create and sell these things. Like they're amazing, right? They have a great culture. And as I talked to her, she was like, Kevin, I think you're in the wrong field. The more that I talk with you, I think you're an HR professional. And I think you need to be focused on building employee cultures. And what's even better is that what we're starting to recognize in the field of human resources is that we need to be advising our chief executive suite on talent strategy, culture strategy, that this is where we are. And what we're helping them do is compete in the talent market. And so I want you to do exactly what you did in the consumer world, but I want you to join me. I went on a 5-year project to be her culture transformation catalyst, to bring human-centered design into her organization and all the pieces of what she managed, and helped create a better culture and create better employee experiences doing exactly what I did. And that's exactly how it happened. I mean, like one woman saw me. If I had not met her, she still is one of our clients. She's at a new company, one of our largest clients, one of our best clients. She's a coach and a mentor for me, as you can imagine. And I credit her. If not, I probably would still be doing more Game of Thrones events for HBO, or whatever new thing they had, So it's her. It's all her. It's all her.
Kevin, you made me think that back in my days of my corporate life, I also did a stint in marketing, and good marketeers, I have noticed, understand well how the brain processes change and adoption or changes of behaviors.
Yes.
And that is quite impressive. I still remember, like probably 15 years ago, I remember having a book called Biology. Like buying, ology.
Great name.
And I was impressed by all the science. It was the early moments of neuroscience, so how you understand the different zones of the brain that activates towards craving a product, wanting something. I was quite impressed, and I think that book made it for me to get a little bit more interested about people, not selling stuff to people. And I totally get it. It goes naturally when you are a good marketeer, how to do this transition. and yes, please.
Go ahead. No, please go.
I wanted to go a little bit because we are going to be talking a little bit also more about the brain and how people react psychologically to these events of remote working. But I wanted to have your opinion about, according to you, what is the biggest roadblocks, challenges to building belonging, especially in the remote work environment? So there is still approximately 35% of people who are working remotely in Europe. I don't remember about the data about on the United States. So 35%, and it's a challenge. What do you see as a major challenges for this idea of building belonging?
Wonderful. And to answer your question, the last time I looked, I think about 40% of the workers in the United States, about 30% of the 40%, those are hybrid workers. They go in and out of office and remote. Only about I think it's around probably 10 or 15%, maybe somewhere in between, are actually fully remote. The rest, 60% of our workforce in the United States goes into an office every day. So when we talk about remote workers, we're really talking about that 40%, right? And I think the ones that are the most isolated, the ones that feel or potentially could feel the highest levels of isolation and loneliness, those are those ones that really truly work only in a remote fashion, Before I answer your question, I feel like I have to give you my perspective on what belonging is, because it's a conversation, right? People here are saying, what is belonging, Kevin? I don't know if I know what it is. And so I want to start there. And I will tell you, in the 2 years where I put my hands in the soil and I got on my bicycle, that was a spiritual journey for me. And I was reaching out to lots of spiritual communities. I was reading lots of self-help books. And one of the teachings I came across was talking about how we need to use our pain, our own personal pain, the things that where we have suffered and continue to suffer. This particular spiritual teacher was talking about that, we can find a lot of purpose and meaning when we use our pain and the lessons learned from it and give that to other people. And my pain, Ivan, is belonging. I have always felt that I was on the inside of groups, but I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like an outsider many times. Also, I also would feel as if I was on the inside, but that I was really lacking appreciation or value. That I wasn't, valued on the inside whatever that group was, that a member of that group meant to be. And so, as I started to, think through my 10 years prior to kind of taking this leave, I was working in the US Hispanic market. And I had been studying with all of my such wonderfully talented colleagues and peers, especially those that were in strategic and account planning. One of them was a Spaniard, actually, Alex Payete. He is an owner of a company called Picnic out of Madrid. And he has translated marketing into innovation. And he uses many of the same things we've always talked about, but he taught me so much about needs and motivation. And so we were studying Latinos, like, what is it their true needs? Why are they here? What do they need in their American experience? What do they need from brands? What motivates them to buy? So he was teaching me about needs and motivation, and likely neuroscience too, because all of that is grounded in our brain and what our brain needs for survival or for fulfillment. And so, as I kind of was thinking through, I'm like, wow, I do create experiences, consumer experiences, where I want consumers to come and feel like, wow, I belong here and I need to buy. Right. So belonging was always my journey, my pain, but also I had been using it to build consumer culture. So as I was then challenged with how do you build employee culture, and how would I do that through a sense of belonging? We now have been studying actively the last 10 years at our company, Experience Willow. We've been studying belonging with our clients' data, with our own data, and we believe we've landed on some very unique things. So the first thing we have to talk about is that we all have a shared 8 billion people, 8 billion humans on this planet have a shared need. It is literally a human need, a motivator, a driver to belong. We have basic needs. We need air, we need water, we need shelter. We need safety and security. But in our middle of our, what would be called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is where emotional and psychological needs are. And so we have a need to belong. We have a need to be seen and to be heard, right? And our other psychological need that's at play actually in the workplace that is actually higher level than belonging is esteem. We need to feel good about ourselves. If we're going to do our best work, do our best things on this planet, we have to feel good about ourselves. So we need to be around people, included in groups, that value us, that respect us, that make us feel comfortable expressing ourselves, that make us feel as if we have a fair shot inside this group to succeed and achieve. We need these psychological needs. And this is where we are at work. We are at work now thinking about these needs that we have, right? And what's interesting about psychological needs, unlike basic needs, which are more lower level, is that it's not about tangible fulfillment. We know when we have air. If we don't have air, we're done, right? Yeah, we're done. But when we don't have belonging, when we don't have esteem, like it's these feelings and emotions that we have, not measurable really, right? And we also, when we've been brought up even in cultures mostly that don't want to talk about feelings and emotions, especially at work. So we don't even have language for them. So our work has, as designers, trying to be at figuring out what are the emotional needs that these experiences need to, and feelings that these experiences we create inside workplaces, what are they? What are they? So we have this need to feel a certain way. And we believe the two main pieces of this are to feel included, to deliver on our belonging need. We are inside a group, but also to feel valued and respected inside this group. If we don't feel valued or respected, our brain tells us our survival inside the group is at risk. And so we go into fight or flight. We go into protection mode. And when we're in protection mode in a workplace, we're not doing our best work. We're worrying about our relationships and how we communicate, and do we raise our hand, and do we put in, do we speak up? And so we want people to feel good. And so we have discovered 4 what we call the feelings of belonging. People need to feel connected to a community. They share time and space with other human beings and they feel close to them. So feeling close to a community is really important, connected to that. We also need to feel connected to what we call at our company, the core mission, core values, core strategy, priorities, goals. And it is important work at a company to cascade that core from the top of the company down into every role. Every role inside a company needs to know that they are contributing to the mission, that they are living the values, that they are in alignment with the culture, that they are, achieving goals that help the company achieve its goals. The more you can do that, the more connected people feel. So feeling connected, this is an issue, a huge issue with remote workers. Right? They lack the face-to-face interaction. They lack, sometimes the management practices, having managers that are good at connecting core, people to core, teams to core. So this is, connection is a feeling that remote workers really suffer. The next feeling is involvement. People need to feel like they're involved, that like they're not just sitting at the table, but they're, that they're actually doing something, that they feel involved, especially in decision making. Decision making is really important in work. People do not like when decisions are made about their work and they don't have their voices heard. That's a really hard thing, right? So not only do you want to feel connected, you also want to feel involved. You want to feel involved. And these two things drive what in the DEI world, these drive inclusion. Most of these things are behavioral, right? Behaviors. On this other side, there's 2 more feelings. The first one is respect and really like a consideration, comfort. So I want to feel as if people allow me to be me, that I can speak freely, that I can show up in whatever my diversity is, that, I can feel like I can reveal myself as an LGBTQ, employee. That's one of my pains at work is the first almost 10 years of my career, I was not out. So I felt the pain of what it means to cover and mask every day. And I use that actively today, as I think about especially how disrespected I felt or how I didn't feel considered, So those are also, but the last feeling is the most important feeling, which is appreciation. So we need to be connected. We need to be involved while we're being involved in our contributions. We need to know that we matter. We need to know that we are doing a good job. We're being paid fairly. Like all of these things are important. So as we talk about remote workers, they have the same needs as non-remote workers. They have the same feelings as non-remote workers. So this model is really important. We just now have to figure out what are the systems, the practices, the rituals, the ceremonies, things that all cultures have. What are the things we need to have in place to help people feel connected, involved, respected, appreciated at work so that they feel belonging, so that they engage and give us their best selves. So I hope that, first of all, that was, I feel like a level setting that had to happen, right? It needed to happen.
It was a need, indeed. And Kevin, you made me think about one theory that I don't know if it is true or not, but towards the age of 40, this need of belonging become even stronger. What I mean is that when I was younger, if I think back about myself, when I was younger, you have ultimate satisfaction of belonging because either you have a family, a partner, you have friends that you enjoy. So you don't need to belong at work that much. But then at the age of 40, you start thinking about this connection or that you have with the values of the company or what you perceive, not what is written, but what you perceive out of the behaviors of people that reflects on the value of the company. And you start having like a little bit of dissonance. Oh, that doesn't, it's not me. This is not what I wanted out of my life. Is that true? 40, it becomes like the critical moment of thinking about it?
Ivan, did you look at my like LinkedIn? Because it was the age of 40 that I left the company to start my own
Oh my
company.
God.
It was literally the age of 40. I literally walked out. I had just had my birthday and I was done. So like, so the fact that you're saying this is you know, I think it is, there is something. So what I'm thinking is, it takes us a while to grow up. It takes us a while as humans to figure out who we are, right? Especially if we don't have active practice in place. I mean, the highest levels of emotional intelligence, I always tell my clients, if you don't want to talk about emotional intelligence, then we don't want to talk about belonging. Belonging is a human psychological, it's an emotional need, it's about feelings. If we don't have organizations of high emotional intelligence, we cannot have belonging. And we've been brought up to be emotionally unintelligent in our cultures, our families, many regards. We don't deal with feelings and emotions. You know, we don't really talk about them. We aren't schooled about them. We don't have language and all those kinds of things for them. You know, so like we're coming in with low levels of emotional intelligence. And the worst thing is to have managers, leaders with low levels of emotional intelligence, like because they're affecting the belonging of all the people that report to them based on how they're able to manage their own emotions and the emotions of their people, right? The emotions of their staff, to even consider their feelings and emotions. So I think as we grow up, you know, we likely grow in wisdom, life experience. We start to realize more of who we are. We likely gain some emotional intelligence. And I think somewhere likely in our late 30s, early 40s, I know now I'm 53. And in my 50s right now, what I'm starting to learn is like, I don't need you. Like I literally like I thought I needed you. Like I don't need you anymore. I don't need this kind of relationship. Like it's not important to me. There's no money, you know, to make my bank account rich enough. So I'm actually just starting to really figure out in my 40s and 50s who I am, who I want to associate with, you know, what is my purpose? What are my strengths? I just want to do those things because when I do those things and when I'm around people I love, I smile more, I'm happier, I'm more positive, you know? And so I think there is something to what you're talking about. And I think I've lived that experience.
And I think it's a process because it doesn't stop. I am still
No.
wondering about where do I belong in terms of faith. I don't have a real faith, so I feel a little bit like ashamed about myself that I'm not following any faith or that I don't belong to. When I'm in Latin America, do I really feel Latino, or do I feel more at ease when I'm in the middle of my white Swiss fellows? I don't know. It's incredible, and it has nothing to do with similar behaviors because I don't feel belonging to all these parents who have kids because I hate parents discussion, to tell you the truth. So it has nothing to do with similar behaviors. It is deeper than that, a connection with something that is bigger than us. I think that make us feel.
Well, so I have struggled with my faith as well. And you know, my faith is in, I think if I had to say, hey, I have a religion, I live the best of all the religions. I think religion, I like want to worship kindness and love and compassion and empathy. Like that's what that's what I want to model in the world. Like that's what I want to be. So, you know, so I've struggled with my faith. I've shamed myself too, you know, like I can feel that. And our intellectual property is called the belonging journey. And my teaching is you're on a journey to belong to every group that you today, you know, spend time in. You're on a belonging journey. And based on what happens during that journey and how you feel those feelings of belonging or not will determine whether or not you stay in that group. And some groups we're born into our families, right? We're born into our Latino-ness, as you said, right? Like, am I a Latino or not? You are, but it's going to be a journey you're on, you know, and always, and it's like that really famous advertising campaign from Johnny Walker Scotch, Keep Walking, and the journey never is like a line. It's like all over the place, you know, it's like this way and that way. And that's how belonging is. But that's also another core teaching of belonging. Our belonging is ours. We have to manage our emotions, our feelings. We have to, you know, set our life up in a way that allows us to meet our needs, not just our physical needs, but our psychological and emotional. So we own that. We cannot put our belonging on other people, right? They don't own it. We own it. So we have to speak up. We have to find the ways to speak up or to leave or whatever it is we need to do or to do more. But the other message is, it is not possible to belong without others. So we all owe it to each other to be emotionally intelligent so that we can treat each other with kindness, so that we can help each other, serve each other, so that, you know, and work is so competitive. And when you get inside a really uber competitive culture, that sometimes is not great for belonging, right? Like, are they on the same team or are they not on the same team? So, you know, but all in all, I started this by talking about my faith, longing to be or not to be. That is the question, right? Like, to be. And there are words throughout all of the religious text, I am, and whatever follows is very powerful. And so I am this, I am what, like those words are repeated throughout language and throughout religion, to be. And so I think belonging is a longing to be the most authentic version of ourselves in all the spaces where we are, in all the groups where we are. That's what belonging is, a longing to be. And we owe it to ourselves to figure ourselves out, you know, to do the work so that we can find where we can be our best self, right? That's really important.
I wanted to tell you, I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with some of the work of a scientist called Paul Zak.
Oh my gosh, I love Paul Zak. I love his work and his
Mm-hmm.
management techniques that have come out of his neuroscience work. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I love his book about trust. And I think that he made it possible that the name of a hormone became a little bit famous, oxytocin, because he talks a little bit about his research in the blood, the levels of the oxytocin according to certain behaviors that happens. I think that in his book, he mentioned that he did tests in New Guinea or in corporate New York. So,
yes.
and this bonding hormone is known to play a role in social connection. And I was wondering, what is your take on how we can leverage our understanding of these of neurochemicals to build a sense of belonging in a remote work environment?
Yes. So here we have remote workers. They lack a lot of face-to-face communication, depending on also the ways they like to communicate. Are they more introverted, extroverted? That depends on whether or not they turn on their camera, they don't turn on their camera, you know? So like they're lacking a lot of face-to-face interaction, a lot of physical presence. We get a lot of energy exchange and we get so many communication cues from being in person with people, right? And so I think because of that, because of just the general communications, maybe even the social disconnection so that they're away from others, they're not there in sharing time and space, it's just hard to feel connected, to feel a sense of belonging. So if you reference Paul Zak's work and his, I think there's 8 management techniques, there's a few that come to mind. The first one, I said this feeling of appreciation, this is the strongest driver of belonging. It's been proven by so many companies. So I would say, and he would say, Paul Zak, that if we recognize excellence, if we find out, I also like Gary Chapman's work, The Love Languages. Do you know the love language work where
No, but
it's
now
been
I'm thinking,
translated into professional environments, but depending on how we were brought up and what our life experiences is, we like to receive love in different ways, right? And so there are I think 5 languages of love. I'll just tell you my top 2, which dominate my love languages. I'm not equally spread across all 5. Like there are 2. The first one is quality time. The time that you and I are spending, I'm falling in love with you, Ivan, because you're spending quality time with me, right? Like I love quality time. And sometimes it's just also like my husband and I'm just like, can we just get in pajamas and watch Netflix? Like that to me is
Best
like
experience
the
ever.
best ever, right? I love it. My other is words of affirmation. So I need to be affirmed. I need that. I need to hear things. And so if we get to know as managers our employees and what their recognition or their love languages are, it's not the same. Your people, if you're hearing me right now, your people do not want to necessarily be loved or recognized in the ways you do. You need to figure it out for them. So there is an onus here on employees and leaders to figure out each other. And part of that is hopefully the other person telling you, hey, listen, words of affirmation or whatever you want to call them, they work really well for me. They're really good motivators. So I think when we recognize excellence, especially and personalize it, Paul Zak would say oxytocin goes like this, whoop, and it builds trust and whatever. This person sees me, they see my contributions. So important, right? So important. Another one he talks about is inducing stress, which I love because I do a lot of teaching and corporate development, and I do a lot around conflict. And one of the things I talk about conflict is how great conflict is. Most people are like, conflict's not great. I'm like, no, but conflict's just debate. It's like getting diverse opinions on the table. Like the best ideas come from this, I want more conflict. We have to do it in ways that allow everyone at the table to want to do it. I get that part, but like we need conflict. He would say induce it, like put it into the team, because what will happen is when you give a team a challenge and then they collaboratively organize around it and work on it, it builds oxytocin in their brains. They become closer. It's that shared experience that they're having. And so he would say, induce these as leaders, give them reasons to bond, give them reasons. And by the way, the business is going to get better because you've given them a business project, like to work on together, So that's really, really important. I think another one that he talks about is job crafting, which I love because obviously I've crafted my own job, my own company, but job crafting is empowering them and saying, okay, listen, here's your 3 goals. You need to come back to me and tell me how you want to do that. What are the things you need to learn? What are the things you do well? Like craft your job, write your job description. I just need to achieve these things. And so giving them that freedom. Now they might freak out a bit, and you have to coach them a little more and whatever, but in the act of empowerment also releases oxytocin, right? It's like, I am powerful, I am like good at what so those are just some of the things he talks about, as some of his management techniques and ways to release. And I think they're all relevant for remote workers. Recognize excellence, put people on projects that are on all different places, make them meet, make them communicate, make them collaborate. And then you think about crafting, like that's awesome. Like while you're out there, let's create something that is meaningful for you, the most meaningful job for you, that will help you, feel better about yourself.
Totally. There is, though, I would like to complement something that you have mentioned about recognition. So if I remember correctly, it is important how we do the recognition. It's not about, hey, Kevin, thank you very much for making it today. No, I have to mention what you did exactly so that I feel like you have seen the thing you were mentioning, the thing that yes. I have done. Yeah. I see myself seeing. So that's quite important, how we do the recognition.
It is. And, there's a model, Center for Creative Leadership out of North Carolina here in the United States. I really, really respect their organization and all the work they've been doing for decades. Sidebar, do you know Vicks Vapor Rub? Really big in the Latino community, right? They put it on everything. Culturally, they love Vicks Vapor Rub. The family that invented Vicks, as they invented it, started to sell it, people started to recognize, hey, you have a unique cult. Like I don't know if they even used the word culture, but it came back to, you have leaders that are really good leaders. And someone said, you should sell that. And so they created the Center for Creative Leadership, and their branding even today is the same colors as Vicks Vapor Rub, the blues and all of those colors. But they have a body of work on feedback. If you think about recognition, it is feedback. And they teach SBI, situation, behavior, impact. And so they would say, whether you're giving critical, maybe more negative feedback, or whether you're giving positive feedback, say, do you remember the situation? This is what was going on. Yes. This is what I saw you do. This is your behavior. This is what I outwardly saw you doing. And here was the impact. It had on the meeting, it had on others, it had on me. And so I think if you use SBI, even when recognizing someone, you can't go wrong. It answers what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, totally. There is, I want to go even more about the practicality of creating this sense of belonging. So building a sense of belonging often involves like having shared experiences. Uh, and this is difficult when we are in remote to develop this sense of team spirit. So how can leaders or team members create this sense of shared experiences when they are all dispersed in different time zones and different parts of the world?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about one already, and that is this idea of inducing, you know, challenge, like giving them something to do. I actually think to expand on that, I think that managers should get together and say, what can our teams do together? Sales can't only do this on their own. They need marketing and HR. So the sales manager, the marketing manager, the HR manager get together and say, here's a project our teams can work on together. I think this is really important. So shared projects and collaborations and getting people to work together and forcing collaboration, I think that helps to foster a broader sense of community. You know, this is a question on a lot of engagement surveys, how well other teams collaborate with us. And it tends to be a driver of engagement, right? This is relationships. So I think that one I just wanted to say, but I wanted to expand it beyond your own team. You know, you can induce challenge stress, not just on your own team, but you could work with other managers to induce even a bigger project. On the flip side, I think revealing a little bit of yourself in fun ways when you're working virtually or remote. And so I've seen a lot of my clients do like team challenges, especially through COVID. They were like, okay, we're going to go on a fitness challenge together. And so they have a shared goal, they have a shared experience, but how you do it on your own they might want to maybe do a virtual exercise class or fitness class or something. But I think having shared goals and experiences, even in the fun or social space, could be like another way for them to induce some challenge stress by things like fitness competitions or cooking contests or things like that. I think that's can also always work really well. And then I just want to go back to recognition, again, the number one driver of belonging. I think that having, for instance, public and private. So as managers and as peers, you need to realize that sometimes people don't like public. You need to know your people well enough to be like, okay, she's not going to like if I say that publicly, but I do need to say it privately. So I think actually almost like building a gratitude practice and a recognition practice into your teams as managers, you need to do that, but you need to realize it's not just about you. It's also about what the peers do to one another. So I've also seen some of my clients do like, what would you call them? Like public, like recognition boards where you can go out and post about people publicly, maybe using a recognition software website, or you could just create it on a Miro or a Lucid, you know, virtual whiteboard or a Google Jamboard. Like there's lots of ways I think you could get it done. But doing that where you can come and post like kudos to people, you know, and you can, it's very visual and there's an action attached to it. So I think even things like that would allow you, you know, for geographically dispersed teams to actually be connecting and to be building belonging through some very, you know, simple things.
By the way, Kevin, I have seen these gratitude walls working perfectly. People really, because when they are outside of the sphere of their supervisor, then they comment to you about, yeah, I feel that feels good. Even the fact of going and posting and saying, Kevin, thank you for this. That makes you feel good. So
the person who's saying thank you, because the person, if there's an exchange, right? Like the person saying thank you gets oxytocin, and then the other person is activated in them, right? So it comes from both. Gratitude practice is so important.
Oxytocin.
Oh yeah,
United States, especially. But it still is a little bit of a challenge to create these informal ways to connect, especially when 1 hour of Zoom counts like 2-3 hours of one-to-one physical conversation. Sometimes my brain doesn't even work after 1 hour of talking. in remotely. So it is a challenge, but everything is possible. Now, if we look at this younger generation arriving from university to the workplace, and they don't have the advantage that maybe you and me we had, like we were onboarded sometimes, or we at least we were in the office,
Yeah.
and we had the opportunity, if we were a little bit extrovert, to ask questions. And I was wondering, is there a way or a strategy to be implemented to help these new hires to be feel connected, because they don't know anything, and suddenly they are part of a Zoom and they don't know anything about the values, and you cannot tell them go and read the page. You don't read values, you practice them, but you cannot see them.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to talk about the belonging journey first. As designers, we think in terms of journey maps. And so when we talk about belonging and we say you're on this journey, we think on the journey, there are a few key moments when you are part of a social group or a work group. Remember, work is our #1 human activity. So in essence, I mean, we will spend more time working as human adults than we will do anything else, including sleep. Like, we will work longer. That's just how it is. And so we have a belief it should be enjoyable. Like that's why we do what we do. If it's going to be our #1 activity, and we're more or less required to do it, right? So when you are working, you're having an experience. We believe there's like these 5 core moments of your journey to go through. And the first 2 are the ones I want to talk about really quickly. In order to be part of a group, you have to be invited. So there is a moment, and not just in your belonging journey, it's not just a moment of invitation. Hey, you passed your interview. We want to invite you and join us, right? And here's your offer letter. That is a very important moment of invitation. But think, Ivan, every day we're invited to meetings. Every day we take on new projects and get invited to a new project team. Maybe we get promoted and we're on a new team. We are constantly being invited. And when we are not invited, when we don't, when our sense of connection or involvement, of respect or appreciation gets in the way because of a moment of invite, that's a really important mistake that we've made as a culture to those individuals. One of the biggest bodies of work, a lot of our clients grow through acquisition. And if you think about it, acquired employees aren't invited. They are basically told, you now belong to this culture. I know you used to belong here, but no one even says, hey, I want you to join. They just said you're just automatically. And I think as humans, we need to feel invited. We need to be invited. Once you're invited and you come into the culture, your next moments are these moments of welcome moments. How are we welcoming you? And I always just say pretty simple. We have all been in places in the world, in our own worlds, in our own countries, in our own communities, where we feel welcome and where we don't feel welcome. And when we don't feel welcomed, we don't want to be there, right? And so, but again, welcoming isn't just for new hires. Like every time you walk into an office, are you welcomed? Every time you open up your Zoom, do you feel welcomed there? So there are opportunities for us as employees and leaders to help people feel invited and welcomed all throughout. And we cannot discount how important these are. These are the 2 most important, obviously, 2 of the most important for new hires. And I really, onboarding experiences, it is one of our larger body of work. I have a passion for onboarding because I think onboarding a lot of times is learning and teaching, and that's my true passion. But I've been doing onboarding programs even before I started my career in advertising. I helped to create and manage an onboarding program at the University of Illinois so that students knew what they could do outside of being in the classroom. So we introduced them to we allowed all of the student organizations and associations that we built this program to introduce people so that they could, start to find a sense of themselves as 18, 19-year-olds at the university. So I've had a passion for onboarding. I've been through great programs. I've been through horrible. My first job, Disney, Walt Disney Company. Their onboarding experience to their theme parks was amazing, called Traditions 1 and Traditions 2, and everyone's go through it. So I loved that. But then I got into the agency world and onboarding was horrible. It was non-existent, right? And so a lot of times we're called in and said, help us with new hires. And I really respect, I've learned a lot from the Gallup company. They have a really large body of research on onboarding. Their research says that only 1 out of 10 employees say that they got a good onboarding.
Hmm.
90% of people not feeling as invited, welcomed, or not getting up to speed on their jobs as quickly as possible. They fault their companies. 90% of workers. So it is a huge opportunity for growth. They say there are 5 questions that every new hire needs answered. What am I supposed to be doing here? How am I supposed to do it? Who am I doing it with? What are my strengths? Meaning, how might I best contribute to this organization? They have Gallup has an entire body of work around strengths, which I love. And also, where am I headed? Like, it's okay, I'm here and you're getting me on board and whatever, but like, what are the goals of this organization? What are the opportunities for me? What am I starting to feel? So we have to answer these 5 questions, not in one day, but in, over time. I would say in the first 30, 60, 90 days, you're really answering these 5 questions. Well, it doesn't matter if you're a remote or if you are a, in physical office worker, new hire, you have the same questions that need to be answered. So what we have to figure out is, what are the best ways to answer those questions for you when you are remote? How do we use communication? How do we use collaboration? How do we introduce people effectively? So I think there are lots of amazing probably ways that, we can be creative. And I've seen my clients really get creative. I have a client who during COVID, they have a wonderful, wonderful office and no one could get into it. And remote workers, which they started having more of, were like, can you just show me around the office? I just kind of want to get a sense of where people work and all that. And so they did this amazing video tour, right? And this 360 tour of their office. And that was a tactic that would never have existed for physical office employees, but for the remote, it was something they created. And then now they can even, use that as they're recruiting people to share the physical space with candidates to say this, this is where our headquarters is, and this is what it looks like. And it's amazing, by the way. It's a beautiful, beautiful location in downtown Manhattan. So you want to show it off, but I think we have to get clever about how we answer those things. But the questions are not different. The questions are the same for remote workers as they are for office workers.
Kevin, I got interested about the fact that during our discussion, you have been mentioning journey maps, culture canvas, indirectly. I identified, I could understand. So your company, Experience Willow, is a designer of employee experience. Is that correct? Or there is more that you have in your toolbox?
Well, our purpose, we defined our why using Simon Sinek's work and going to his workshops and all of that. And our purpose is to ignite a contagious curiosity that powers change. I'm known for, if you haven't noticed my energy or my passion, I failed you. If you haven't figured out that I'm curious and that I'm a risk taker because of my curiosity, I've painted a picture of my career and kind of what I've done that's maybe out of the ordinary and how I've left one thing to become other. And I've done that more than once. But our purpose is to ignite curiosity. I've always done that through 3-dimensional physical experiences. It's just been with me ever since I was a child. I was in theater and I loved the sets and creating a world, an immersive world that people would come into for 2 hours and then leave. I feel like I'm just doing that now, just in the theater of work, right? In the stage of all the stage that it is, and how it plays out every day. But we at our heart ignite a contagious curiosity. How we did that is through human-centered design. So we are a design firm. We employ the 5 actions of design: empathize. So all design is founded in empathy. Define, which is about understanding what you heard and defining very clear problem statements. Ideating solutions, then prototyping the best of those solutions and testing them, and just continuing that loop to create, continual improvement, right? And so I would say that I didn't have the language of human-centered design, but when I was calling on Coca-Cola, I helped them design their Olympic Games in Sydney and their presence there. I helped them design their, physical experiences around the Salt Lake City Games and their presence on the Olympic torch relay that crossed, the United States. So I was doing it. I just did it a little differently because as marketers, and I told you this before, that account planner taught me like needs, motivations. That's having empathy for consumers, figuring them out. So I was employing, and obviously as a creative agency, I'm ideating, I'm creating, sometimes I test, sometimes we don't. So I was doing it, but now I'm active. It's the language, it's the methods. I'm an active practitioner. And yes, 100% of our work is focused on work experience. Anything that involves and touches the place of work, we believe that human-centered design is a creative problem-solving process. So you have a strategic concern, I can actually lead a design team of your workers. We can coach you through a process and help you solve your strategy issues. Oh, you need a physical experience? Let me help you think through onboarding or recruitment or, a learning and development experience. We do a lot of social gatherings actually because we have fun. Again, we love that Game of Thrones party that we threw and it did so well. Our clients are like, don't necessarily have those budgets, but could you do an immersive Halloween party for us? And we do. And we have fun. And that's part of engagement. That's part of belonging. That's part of all of that work experience. So that's who we are and what we do every day. And, we're so happy to help create impact in so many human lives because this is where they spend the majority of their days and weeks, months, and years is working. Again, it should be enjoyable.
Kevin, when you talk about this, you have your eyes that are sparkling. I can tell you. So your energy, checked. So nothing to say about it.
Thank you so much.
I love the fact that the elements of how you build experiences you use a lot of the processes that some of them quite new. You would be astonished. My previous company, only few people were using design thinking for creative work. And it wasn't even the marketing department, it was the IT department who was using design thinking. Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
Anyways, Kevin, how can people reach you out? Because it is amazing. I think that just with a couple of minutes, half an hour of discussing with you, people can get and grasp how can they use your experience the best. So how can they reach you out?
So there's a couple of ways. First of all, you can come to our company site to see some of the work we're doing. It's constantly evolving, that site, as we evolve our own story and our own practices, but you can go to experiencewillow.com. And that is our company website. That's our consulting website. But my team is like, Kevin, you need to get your message out. You need to get your belonging message out. We need to talk more about the belonging journey. So we're now starting to also build, and you can go here to kevinfinke.com. I have my own personal site. I'm also on several speaker sites. That's where I came in contact with you, Ivan. So those are the two best places. And there, you not only can sign in to our content and all of that, you can actually, also schedule time with me personally. I'm opening my calendar. I feel like the universe brings me the people that I need to be in contact with, right? So if people want to talk to me about my favorite subject, belonging, I am ready and open to talk to them about belonging because we all need more of it. It's this need that we have that we're all struggling with, as we're on our own journeys to belong.
Kevin, it was lovely to host you. I have learned a lot. There is a lot of the things that I needed to discuss with someone like you, like these stories about the 40s and this need of belonging that comes at the 40s. I'm going to be thinking about it tonight before my Netflix moment with my wife.
I love it so much. Please, I'm always available to you. Let's continue our conversation offline or wherever that happens. I would love to do that. You remind me of a dear friend who I've lost touch with, who actually I worked with in New York at that Latino company. And this conversation is spurring me to be like, I need to reach out to Gustavo. So I'm going to do that today.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. Thank you for
back to Gustavo. Thank you very much, Kevin. Have an excellent day.
Thank you. Have a great day.